Everywhere you look, the rich history of the United Kingdom is there to be seen. But hidden beneath our feet, there's still a wealth of archaeological treasure just waiting to be found. That's why each year, up and down the country, our archaeologists dig down, searching for fresh discoveries.
Another one.
Revealing the imprint of ancient civilizations.
Yeah. So we are looking at a completely unknown Roman town.
That's crazy. Wow. And unearthing priceless objects.
Might be a pendant.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
This is something special, isn't it?
Yeah, I've not seen anything like it so far.
Every dig adds new pieces to the ever-growing archaeological jigsaw
Gotta come and have a look.
that is the epic story of our islands. It's been an extraordinary year full of challenges, and yet I've been able to visit so many exciting digs up and down the country.
Oh my goodness.
There have been spine-tingling discoveries to witness.
That is the face of a Trojan.
Yes.
My heart is racing.
And I'm even getting a chance to use a trowel myself. I'm joined by a trio of expert investigators.
I can actually see the texture of the weave, and it's, what, 1,600 years old?
It's amazing that a small DNA sample like this can tell that really quite big story.
As they dig deeper for answers.
Same technique as the Romans used.
Exactly.
Finally, the archaeologists bring their best finds into the studio. You can see that this object has had a life of its own. For up-close analysis.
It's astonishing detail.
Welcome to Digging for Britain. This time we take a look at what archaeologists have been unearthing in the west of the UK. A previously undiscovered Roman town provides the ultimate treasure hunt.
I found a couple brooches, I found a ring, bracelet.
It is amazing, isn't it? A mysterious shrine surrounded by child burials puzzles the experts.
Almost looks as if they're trying to get these children as close to whatever the central feature is.
And archaeology solves the mystery of a World War II tragedy.
Right, this was found in one of the pits that was created by the aircraft as it fell.
The first location on my archaeological tour of the West is tucked away in the spectacular Mendip Hills, 16 miles south of Bristol. I love the Mendip Hills. I'm often to be found walking here at the weekend, and here I am right up on the top. North Somerset levels over there. The Somerset levels themselves to the south, Glastonbury and Glastonbury Tor are out there in the mist somewhere. We're just catching that wooded valley there, which is the very top of Cheddar Gorge, which is full of caves which are stuffed full of Paleolithic and Mesolithic archaeology. Cheddar itself, of course, home to the famous cheese. But it wasn't the cheese that attracted the Romans to Mendip. It was the minerals. The Romans arrived on Britain's eastern shores in 43 AD, and 6 years later they reached Somerset and the Mendip Hills. The Romans came here to mine galena, the ore that is smelted to produce lead. You'd expect this important industry to fuel thriving local economies and settlements in the surrounding area, but little evidence of that has been found until now. In a valley nearby, trenches are being dug for huge new electricity cables, and dozens of archaeologists have been scouring the ground after surveys revealed signs of human activity.
It's a copper coin, see?
It's one of 500 coins we've found so far.
Thankfully, they were armed with our Dig Diary cameras. As it turns out, there's treasure to be found.
We've got this dolphin brooch with possible enamelling inside.
Wow.
And we found a jet spindle whirl.
Half a copper stylus, I came from Rome to find a Roman coin here in our Somerset.
What a brilliant way to start the week.
The archaeologists expected to find some evidence of farming communities, but what they found stunned everyone.
So we're just on the edge of the settlement here.
We're on the edge of the settlement here.
Yeah.
Still huge amount of activity.
Mike Glyde is lead archaeologist for the National Grid. It's his job to make sure the precious archaeology is excavated and recorded before the cables are laid.
This particular area was identified requiring excavation in advance of construction, and what we have found here has far surpassed anything any of us could have really predicted. We have over 1.5 metres of unbroken stratigraphy dating from the late Iron Age right through to late Saxon medieval period, and we've got totally unbroken settlement on site. So we're seeing the huge amount of social and economic development of a town in fine detail.
That's amazing. So basically what these works have given you is a cross-section through this town.
Absolutely, yeah.
And presumably you knew there was some Roman archaeology here?
Yeah, there's Roman remains in the immediate vicinity of here, but
Yeah.
we are looking at a completely unknown Roman town.
That's crazy. You're expecting a little bit of Roman activity here.
Yeah.
Something fairly light.
Yes.
Something that would take you maybe a few weeks to dig.
Exactly.
And how long have you been here?
2 years.
For the Romans, building a network of roads to these outermost reaches of the empire was essential for moving goods and troops. And as they took road building so seriously, a lot can be learned from digging one up. Like this one, that clearly lay at the heart of this community.
Is that a road?
Yes, that is our third Roman road down.
Bob McIntosh is leading the Oxford archaeology team.
So this is one of 4 of our Roman roads. All directly on top of each other. They're all 4th century. This is the nicest one.
When does this road date to?
Just past 300. So this is roughly Constantine. There's a big phase of infrastructure projects in Britain during his reign, rewarding his supporters for making him emperor, because he's crowned in Britain before conquering the rest of the Roman Empire. And it fits perfectly with our settlement going from just urban sprawl up the valley to big road being built through, demolishing people's houses, which you can see the foundations of sticking out through the road surface.
Constantine, famous for being the first Roman emperor to convert to Christianity, was actually proclaimed emperor in York in 306 AD.
As you can see, his face really clearly, his long hair and the name Constantine around the edge.
His reign kick-started a new period of economic prosperity for Roman Britons, not least for those who lived in this vibrant settlement. I've come right to the top of the Mendip Hills to meet county archaeologist Kat Lodge, who's been looking at the wider impact of this newly discovered road and settlement.
It is fantastic being right up here on the top of the Mendip Hills and getting this appreciation of the geography.
Yeah, it's a very different landscape from what you would have seen in the Roman period, and would have been extensive salt marshes and rivers weaving in and out.
And we've got the lead mines over to the east of us here, and our new roadside settlement down there to the west.
Yep.
How's that changing your idea of the Roman landscape of Mendip?
These routes, they're almost completely new to us. So our roadside settlement is really giving us the possibility that there was trade off Mendip into the Bristol Channel.
In the Roman era, the nearest major trade route for the lead mines of the Mendip Hills was the epic Fossway, where it passed just to the southeast. But the discovery of the new roadside settlement suggests there was another trade route, taking lead straight from the mines to the coast, where it could be exported by ship across the Roman Empire.
And you think that is all linked to this economic activity, this industrial activity up here on the Mendip Hills?
I do. I mean, we've got evidence from the 1950s in the vicinity of metalworking, very close to our roadside settlement that's being excavated. It kind of all leads to that.
It's quite strange, isn't it? I mean, looking out over this landscape today, it's a largely agricultural landscape. And you go back into the Roman period, and it seems that there was more industry going on back then.
Yeah, in terms of the industry, I mean, we don't really see anything like that now. It's just the lumps and bumps and earthworks that remain today.
Yeah. And then it's new infrastructure that is opening up this opportunity to look at our heritage.
It really is. Without these developments and these infrastructure projects, we wouldn't be finding sites like this amazing roadside settlement and understanding so much more about the historic environment around us and our collective heritage.
Back at the spectacular settlement, the team have uncovered more of that heritage. There's evidence for major butchery, a bone workshop, and several wells, this one still almost intact.
At the moment, we've excavated the interior down to 50 centimetres, as you can see.
I just found this little bit of British Romano glass, and it's very nice. You can see the bubbles, and this is adding further evidence of the fact that this settlement was a domestic one.
The mix of light industry and domestic luxury suggests this was an affluent community with this major road as its main artery.
So this layer that you've got exposed now, this is the heyday of this Roman town then?
Yeah, this is the town at its peak. This is also the phase with by far the most imported finds from the continent.
So there's plenty of goods flowing in. Presumably they're exporting lead.
Yeah, the people living directly here are not lead miners. They're living too well for that. These are merchants or accountants or some secondary industry that is making money off of those lead mines, I would assume.
What a place to gain experience for these young archaeologists.
Hello.
Like 24-year-old Mariah.
Have you found anything exciting while you've been working here?
Actually, I found a coin from the Domitian period. I found a couple brooches, I found a ring, bracelet. It's been a very good site.
It is amazing, isn't it? I mean, to have this town in the middle of countryside.
Honestly, and this is my first, official site, because it's my first job since university.
Is it?
I'm living my best life, I will say. Yeah. It's been very good to me.
Oh, it sounds amazing. I'm going to go and look at some of the finds in a bit. Thank you very much.
Bob has gathered together just a handful of the hundreds of treasures so far unearthed, so I can have a closer look.
Some of your lovely finds.
Yeah, so 1st century, we've got very early silver coin. It is Emperor Domitian.
I can see that, yes. I can read that. It's beautiful.
So that's 90s AD. He's only emperor for a few years.
Yeah.
That gives a really nice specific date for that phase of the settlement.
So just as this Roman town is starting to take off, really?
And already shows a certain amount of wealth, because an average labourer would make one of those denarii a day.
OK. So have you got any other finds that are around that kind of early phase of the site, the 1st century?
Yeah, so the other one is my favourite one. 1st century, legionary, standard issue, turf cutter. Every Roman legionary would have one of those in his pack.
So why are they clearing turf?
You cut the turf away before you dig your ditches. You're clearing all the vegetation, so you have clear lines of sight from your defences.
Yeah.
That's late 1st century, so the soldier who carried that almost certainly was in the invasion of Britain and would have campaigned through this part of the country, and then has retired here and kept his turf cutter.
You could have used that to deturf this area.
Exactly, yeah, that's why I like this one. That is me 2,000 years ago.
And what about these beautiful brooches? When do they date from?
These ones are all 1st to 2nd century.
No, that's amazing. Look at that.
So that is particularly high status, enamel inlaid, with the enamel still intact, which I've not seen before. Normally you get the settings, but all the enamel is gone.
Yeah. Oh, that has to be one of the most beautiful brooches I've seen. And this hasn't even been properly conserved yet.
No, that is as it came out the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, what a find. What about that? That's lovely.
Probably our best find so far. Knife handle for a little pocket knife, also from between two of our road surfaces, lodged between two cobbles. I'm sure someone was very sad to have lost this one.
That is lovely. It's a dog chasing a
It is a
rabbit
greyhound
or a
chasing a hare, yeah. And it is actually for a folding knife. The slot for the blade to slide into is still visible.
Yeah.
You would have been able to see the blade between all their legs, which is particularly stunning.
A little pocket knife that would have opened like that.
Common motif for the later empire, the
Yeah.
dog chasing a hare, but you don't normally find it in such a beautiful representation.
Whoever lost that must have been really gutted.
Furious, I would imagine.
That's a fantastic set of finds to tell the story of this Roman town.
Digging here will finish in just a few weeks' time, and what's left will be covered up once again. But archaeologists now have a treasure trove of new finds to sift through to help them understand more about Roman life in Somerset.
Across southern England and extending into the west, there's a huge band of chalk, making the perfect canvas for art on a monumental scale. From horses to warriors, these huge chalk figures decorate our hillsides. Now, we know that some of them are prehistoric, others are the whimsical creations of eccentric Georgian landowners. But it can be extraordinarily difficult to pinpoint the exact date when such a chalk figure was created. And one that's kept the archaeologists guessing for centuries is also the naughtiest of them all.
This enigmatic figure is carved into the great southern chalk bed near the small village of Cerne Abbas in Dorset. At 55 metres tall, the Cerne Abbas Giant towers over the Dorset landscape, with his phallus alone proudly standing at 11 metres. He's shocked and delighted people for hundreds of years. But incredibly, despite centuries of speculation, nobody knows when he was carved. Mike Allen is one of the archaeologists determined to solve this mystery.
Everyone in British archaeology knows about him, but we haven't a clue about what date he is. And that's one thing that archaeologists are normally very good at, saying why they're there, what was happening, and what date they are. And in this case, we can't answer any of those questions.
Mike's joined forces with National Trust archaeologist Martin Papworth in a bid to find the answers. The Trust acquired this monument in 1920, and for the centenary, they too wanted to solve this puzzle.
It seems an ideal opportunity to date this enigma of the giant. Huge amounts have been written about him. Loads and loads of quite credible theories of all different periods of time have been put forward for him, and we just wanted to know.
One theory is that the Romans carved this figure to represent the demigod Hercules, famous for his strength and his legendary sexual prowess. He was often portrayed holding a club. But Mike thinks he could be much older, possibly similar in age to other chalk figures like the Uffington White Horse in Oxfordshire.
The Uffington White Horse is late Bronze Age, early Iron Age, and I think that he fits perfectly into that. So I put my money strongly into the fact that he's a prehistoric deity overlooking the landscape in which they farmed.
The earliest historical record is from 1694, when the nearby St Mary's Church lists repairs to WWII Giant costing 3 shillings. This first reference, not long after Oliver Cromwell was sworn in as Lord Protector in 1653, backs the legend that the landowner created this as a caricature to mock the man known as England's Hercules. Martin Papworth is putting his money on this later date.
There's no history, but it's such an obvious figure on the hillside, for goodness sake. He can't be much older than the 17th century.
In their search for answers, last year Martin and Mike were given special permission to start excavating. The figure is deeply carved into the hillside, so to date it, they must dig down through nearly 1 metre of accumulated deposits to get to the very earliest phase of its construction.
We actually have some soil and some materials to date it when he was constructed, and little minute snails that we find in this chalky soil will help tell us that answer.
Mike can loosely date the sediment using snail shells, because some species only appear after specific points in history. These shells become date markers. And when the snails from the Cerne Abbas Giant are analysed, they reveal an incredible result.
Two of the species in here, the helicelids, occur in Britain in the medieval period or later. And the fact they're here suggests that the basal deposits and all the deposits above must be medieval or later, which rather blows my idea out of the water that he's a prehistoric monument. He's clearly medieval or later.
Mike's theory of a Bronze Age date is out of the running, but Martin's 17th century caricature could still be correct. For a more precise date, our archaeological sleuths have brought in extra firepower. Philip Toms is Head of Environmental Sciences at the University of Gloucestershire. Using a type of luminescence dating, he can date the giant by finding out precisely when the sediment underneath it was last exposed to sunlight.
Within our samples, we're after sand-sized grains of quartz, and it's that quartz that contains our signal that will tell us how old our samples are. The disc that we're using is just enough to hold the grains that we need to measure, and there are about 100 grains on this disc. And for a typical measurement, we'd probably measure about 2,400 individual grains of sand. So our disc goes into this machine, it spins into position, we fire a green laser onto each grain of sand, and out comes the luminescent signal, and it takes about a week to measure.
Archaeological science is now going to enable us to paint the picture of the landscape and the society it belongs to, whereas before we were just guessing.
It's very exciting, whole new ideas about what he could be and what he symbolises.
A week later, and Phil's lab has the results that the Cerne Abbas archaeology team is waiting for. An accurate age for their giant.
We conducted the analysis and the dates have come out somewhere between 700 AD and 1100 AD. So given most people's views where it was either prehistoric or Cromwellian in age, for it to land in the medieval period was a bit of a surprise for everyone. That means we've got to return to the site and think about our interpretations of it again.
There is a hollow.
Martin and Mike have been stunned by these results. Now they know the Cerne Abbas Giant was created in the medieval period.
Well, we're surprised, aren't we? This isn't what we expected at all. I mean, I was convinced he was post-medieval.
And I was convinced he was prehistoric, and I think, a bit of archaeological science has proven that neither of us were right, and we're both wrong.
It seems archaeologists and historians may have missed a big clue right under their noses.
Everyone seems to have been carried away with his nakedness and the member, and no one had actually really thought about the obvious, the abbey sitting behind us.
Below the giant once lay Cerne Abbey, founded in 987, right in the middle of the period when we now know the giant was created. But what connection could a huge naked figure have to a Benedictine monastery? Perhaps historians have focused on the wrong appendage.
Just right next to his outstretched hand is in fact the abbey, which was established at the same time.
The abbey's wealth was created largely by pilgrims venerating the local holy man, St. Eadwald of Cerne. Legend has it that Eadwald lived as a hermit on a nearby hill after he planted his wooden staff in the ground there, and it miraculously grew into a tree. Perhaps the club is really a staff sprouting leaves.
Is he St. Eadwald? What do I think? I don't know. I don't know who he is, but this medieval date makes all sorts of theories possible.
For our next dig, we travel back in time a little, to the first few centuries of the early medieval period. The location is in West Wales, on a beach right on the tip of Pembrokeshire. This is White Sands Bay, and out there is the Atlantic Ocean.
The sea looks so benign today, but this beach in West Wales gets absolutely battered by storms. And in 2014, a storm crashed in and exposed a small cemetery at the top of the beach, prompting an archaeological rescue operation, which is transforming our understanding
of early medieval Christian communities here in Wales. That storm and the danger of more to follow was a call to arms for archaeologists, and soon a rescue mission to lift and catalogue the contents of the cemetery was launched. In 2016, Digging for Britain joined the team from Dyfed Archaeological Trust and the University of Sheffield as they made the discovery that the cemetery contained a concentration of child burials, almost perfectly preserved in the sand.
So it seems to be a woman buried with a baby in the crook of her arms.
That's right.
That's incredible. Yeah. That's the baby's head, yeah.
Here's the mother's left arm.
It's rare to find this quantity of infants in a communal cemetery. Doesn't matter what date it's from. Here we've got a large number of them because the preservation in the sand has been so good for skeletal remains.
There had been a late medieval chapel on the site, but beneath its foundations were graves dating back as far as the 7th century. Infant mortality rates were high in this period, and the sand here has preserved evidence that enormous care went into burying these children.
So what we've got here is a really rather nice bone pin, possibly a shroud pin. And some of the burials that we've had here, you can see from the position of the skeleton, the feet particularly, that these people look like they were wrapped in shrouds when they were buried.
5 years on, and the dig team has returned for another season. I'm joining them to see if they found any new evidence to suggest why so many children were buried here. Ken Murphy is the site director. Ken, when I last caught up with this site, you had a lot of infant burials at higher levels.
We did, and we've still had loads and loads of infant burials.
How many burials have you had in entirety coming in?
Entirety, about 250 together. That's over several years. But this year, we've had about 150 in this quite small area.
1, 2, 3.
In the days before I arrived, there was a fascinating discovery that may provide some answers.
Do you want to come and have a look?
As to why so many children were buried here.
You okay?
Yeah.
They were often placed in kists, little stone-lined graves. But this large kist appears to have had some special status.
It almost looks as if they're trying to get these children as close to whatever this central feature is.
Surrounded by those tiny skeletons and decorated with carefully laid quartz pebbles, it was a tense moment for the archaeologists excavating this mysterious feature.
We've come down from this level. It had a capping on the top. 2 burials have already been extracted. From here, you can see where that slate has been sort of dragged out, splayed out. So we're going to get all that cleared away before we investigate this any further. But at the moment, this is a bit of a mystery to us. We don't quite know what's going on there.
A few days later, and I'm keen to see what they learned about this intriguing structure. So again, you've got this central box-like feature there. So what's this?
We thought it was going to be a special grave, but it doesn't seem to be. It seems to be more of a shrine. So people try to get their infants as close as possible to this to be buried.
One part of the feature has even been cut away to bury a child's body as close as possible.
So
it's smashed away here?
Smashed away, that's right. So it's quite an effort to go to. So this is a very special place where people wanted to bury their newborn children who obviously didn't survive.
Before there was even a chapel here, this was clearly a sacred place where people buried their children around this mysterious shrine. And it dates to a time in the 7th century when Christianity was beginning to take hold in Wales. And Ken's found more evidence.
So again, you've not had many finds coming out of this site, but then you do have spectacular ones like this. It's lovely.
That's right. We don't really get small finds as such, but we do get these. And this is a really good example of well, obviously a cross incised stone. It would have been originally standing upright as a grave marker, but it had been reused in our Kistor shrine as a side slab. As far as we're aware, that's the first time we actually got an interlaced cross actually in situ, as it were. Most of them are known as just loose in churches or in churchyards or whatever. Yeah. So actually to get one in situ is really quite special.
Yeah, I know the edges are really sharp. I mean, you can practically see the lines where it's been carved away again and again.
Yeah.
And we're completely clear that this is Christians at work then.
Yes, well, yes, not much doubt.
Similar examples to this intriguing feature can be seen across the water in Ireland, where small rectangular cairns have also been found, built on the earliest Christian sites.
So do you think there were connections between this site and Ireland then?
Yeah, I mean, this actual site has got a very sort of Irish feel to it. This central structure we get in there, circular structure, is similar to some sites you get on the west coast of Ireland. From Dublin to here is probably a day's journey by sea. From here to, inland to eastern Wales is probably 3 or 4 days on foot or by horse.
And the Irish connection doesn't stop there. Records show a chapel was built on this site centuries later, and it was dedicated to Ireland's most famous saint, Patrick. In earlier centuries, religious sites and cemeteries were often separate. Burial grounds like these, with chapels later built on them, are precursors to the churchyards we're more familiar with. Although archaeologists approach their work objectively, it's always poignant to excavate tiny graves like these.
How's it going, Hayley? How many infants have you excavated here?
About 5. It was a bit of a wobble. I had a bit of an emotional moment. So.
Yeah. It's always poignant, I think, digging child burials.
Yeah.
Because, you think about the people that place that little body in the ground.
Exactly.
To find out more about the early medieval people who lived and died in West Wales, archaeologist Kat Jarman has travelled to Sheffield University, where skeletons from the dig are being analysed.
Laid out in this lab are some of the child skeletons from the White Sand dig. Katie Hema is a bioarchaeologist like me.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, Kat. Meaning she forensically analyses bones to find out more about the people they belong to.
They're such tiny bones, aren't they?
Yeah, this individual's about 2 to 3 years of age.
And these lower long bones here, I mean, this looks very, very curved to me.
They do. There's curvature in that one, and there's quite notable bending in this one as well. That evidence suggests that maybe this individual experienced vitamin D deficiency rickets, because you often get bowing of the long bones in rickets.
This microscopic image of an infant's tooth shows how Katie's forensic analysis found more evidence of widespread vitamin D deficiency.
You can notice there's sort of these lines of blotchy, sort of black patches, and that's basically dentine that hasn't formed properly because this individual was deficient in vitamin D.
And it's really interesting what this is actually telling us, because vitamin D, you get that from sunlight, don't you? So presumably this means this child was not getting enough sunlight. What can you say about why this is happening?
Perhaps they were poorly and they were being kept indoors, and therefore they weren't getting, that exposure that they really needed. And maybe that, in time, actually, led to them, unfortunately, dying.
Another skeleton backs the archaeologist's theory that some people travelled from far away to the White Sand site. Katie's studied the sulphur content in this young woman's bones.
Sulphur relates to the underlying geology of a region. You know, the sulphur goes up into the soil and the plants, and then the people eat those plants. And we actually found that their sulphur signature was very different from the rest of the people that we sampled. Everybody else looked like they were growing up on the coast, but this person actually had an inland sulphur signature.
Oh, so she's actually moved and ended up there later in her life?
I think so. I think that's what the sulphur is showing, because and this person's signature was more consistent with another population that I sampled from southeast Wales, much more inland, really different from those on the Pembrokeshire coast.
And that's quite interesting because it's a woman as well, isn't it? So it tells us something about mobility among women in this time and place that we didn't really know from other sources.
And I think it's also important to our understanding of the community. Not everyone that was buried at the site were local to that region as children. People were moving there, people were being buried there that weren't necessarily native to that area. So I think that's also really important to our understanding of who these people were, what this community was all about, and what was going on in early medieval Wales.
It's very rare to get that much information out of an early medieval Welsh community like that. So the fact that we're finding out about children especially, we don't get children preserved in cemeteries like this. So the stuff that we can now find out about disease, about illness, just how people lived in those communities, it's just adding so much to the picture of the past that we just didn't have before.
Come and search for we who search, and looking for us scour the land.
Next, a return visit to a place we recently featured when exploring the south of England. It's a vast, special area of conservation that straddles both Hampshire and Wiltshire, Salisbury Plain. The plain consists of around 300 square miles of mostly chalky downland, about half of it used by the military. But its rich past means the sound of busy archaeologists can often be heard above the distant explosions.
I'm visiting a fantastic project where archaeology is being used as therapy, but they're digging this particular site because it's under threat. It's threatened by unscrupulous people wishing to make financial gain out of plundering, looting our rich archaeological heritage, a heritage that belongs to all of us.
It all started when this pocket of land was surveyed for potential use for construction.
Richard.
Hello.
I thought I'd find you in a trench somewhere on Salisbury
Somewhere
Plain.
on Salisbury Plain, yeah. Well, you've chosen a good one.
MOD archaeologist Richard Osgood commissioned a geophysical survey of the site that, to everyone's surprise, revealed signs of an early medieval cemetery, right where the building was planned.
But usually, I mean, after the evaluation, wouldn't you have just left it there and said, well, no, we know there's archaeology there. If we want to develop around here, we can do that elsewhere. What prompted the excavation here?
The problem for us is that when we had the report given to us, we were told as part of that, we're really sorry, but word has got out about this particular site and it's vulnerable. And the reason it's vulnerable is because there are going to be metallic objects in these graves, and sadly, it's at risk for these group called night hawkers, who are, you know, non-scrupulous metal detectors, frankly. Metal detectors can be great on site, but there's a group that just don't play nicely, frankly. And
I mean, if you've got people coming in with metal detectors and just digging down to individual metal objects in the ground, they're disturbing these burials, and then you lose any context, don't you?
I don't know. It makes you weep, really. It's a real shame.
Joining Richard on this archaeological rescue mission are volunteers from Operation Nightingale. This MOD project helps ex-servicemen and women rehabilitate after serving on the battlefield. One of them is Falklands War veteran Sean.
Sean, looks like you've nearly finished.
Oh yeah, we're on the final phase of extraction of this skeleton.
And the most delicate part there.
Just a case of very, very carefully going around the edge and then very, very carefully loosening it and then taking a gulp and putting it in the bucket.
Yeah. And Sean, do you think it's the archaeology that's helped you, or is it being together with people?
It's a bit of both, but as you're digging away, you zone out. And it does stop you thinking about the bad things, but I find it just gives me the peace to think, right, this is what I've got to do next week. This is where I'm going now with the rest of my life. I'm just waiting on news now, and I'm out of a place at Bradford University doing a mature archaeology undergraduate course.
Really?
Yeah, 65.
What's starting this year?
At 65.
That's amazing.
There is light at the end of the tunnel.
Now look, we've been chatting. I've been stopping
I
you
better
from
get on.
lifting that skull.
And it's drying out. Right, you ready?
Ready.
2-6. Go on, darling. Right.
Based on the team's latest findings, this mysterious cemetery has been dated to around the 7th century AD.
So good early medieval date to it, and that's from the artefacts that we're finding now in these burials. We did have a bit of excitement, thought we might have some early Bronze Age because there was some nice prehistoric material. There's a flint barbed and tanged arrowhead. It looked really nice. And then that central thing.
This circle, that looks kind of prehistoric to me.
Yeah, it does. But no, that's 7th century as well. And there was nothing with it, disappointingly, because I dug it. But for that person, the mound was their testimony, because you'd have seen it from quite a distance away, I think.
So that's the kind of founder burial, and then all these other burials are placed in later?
That's right. I think the cemetery's built up over, you know, a period of 20, 30 years, maybe. It may not be a long period of time.
This impressive grave may have been that of a local leader. It's thought to have been covered in a mound of bright white chalk, which would have been visible for miles around.
So we're right next to the burial with the amethyst bead.
Again, nice size.
The surrounding graves are much more modest, but in contrast do contain a range of fascinating 7th century grave goods.
Oh, wow.
We've just found another silver coil and this little coin.
There are bronze and silver rings.
Another ring just here.
That's all starting to come out.
Even a fragile but recognisable bone comb. Amongst these personal objects, they discover small knives and flint arrowheads, as well as some larger weapons.
So what's it made of?
Iron.
We learn something about who these people were from the artefacts buried with them, objects they may have used or worn in daily life, or which may have been placed in the ground by mourners. But there are also clues in the bones themselves, with experts on hand to help decipher them.
Because that's what, if you remember me saying about the greater sciatic notch.
So there's no difference male or female?
No, this means nothing at all.
Sharing her wealth of knowledge is Jackie McKinley, osteoarchaeologist with Wessex Archaeology.
It's just brilliant having someone with your level of expertise on site, because you can bring that biography to the skeletons. It's not just a skeleton. It tells you so much about who that person was in life.
Exactly. I mean, this one here, for instance, there's two individuals in here. But for me, the formation process that's interesting is, one, the soil is really, really loose.
Yeah.
It suggests there might have been something over the top of here. Maybe a wooden board or something like that, and stuff slowly dropped in over time.
So it'd be really interesting to know if they were related to each other.
Yeah, and if we do DNA analysis and they are related, we will be able to see whether it's a first generation, second generation, you know, how much of a gap there is.
There's layers and layers of information
there. There is. One of the things in archaeology that is so intimate are the human remains themselves.
The volunteers here are finding new purpose through their work and protecting the valuable history of these early medieval plain dwellers from destruction by reckless modern treasure hunters. And by the end of the dig, they've uncovered 21 graves. Now, Richard has brought some of the most exciting finds from these graves to the Digging for Britain tent for a thorough inspection.
Richard, that was such a wonderful dig, and you could see the way that the veterans were really benefiting from the whole process of archaeology?
It's counterintuitive, isn't it, in some ways, that you take traumatised individuals to a site with a load of burials. But I think if you're finding really lovely items and you're concentrating so hard in excavating them, it does work.
And in terms of finds, then, these are some of the grave goods that you discovered?
Yeah, we found quite a few. I think probably about a third of the graves had items in them, some of them in better condition than others. But nonetheless, I think they tell you a really interesting story about the 7th century at this particular part of Salisbury Plain.
So we've got an iron knife and an iron spearhead here?
Yep, that's right. And so those were buried with an adult male on the edge of the area. So maybe that's the earliest burial that we've got on the site.
Yeah.
And you move into the 7th century and we get a lot of jewellery, and it tends to be with the female burials.
And these are beautiful beads.
I know.
Is that amethyst?
It is. It's exquisite, isn't it? I mean, we've had quite a few of these from a necklace. The crafting that goes into something like that is incredible. And these have come from a distance. Now, these have been traded over quite a large area. You get these over on the eastern Mediterranean. I mean, maybe even as far as India. This is ideas and goods moving over big distances at this point in time.
Some of them are tiny. Look at that. Beautiful little blue bead. Is that glass?
It is. I think that's my favourite. The craft in that to make it this little flower shape is just delightful, isn't it?
And the colour. I mean, it's just beautiful. So, summing up then, Richard, will you be doing further analysis on the bones and teeth?
Yeah, that's right. That's the next stage, is that all the 22 individuals that came from this site will be assessed and to have a look and see whether there are people that have moved big distances or whether these are just Wiltshire folk that love the fashions of the classical empire.
Coins to the eyes and keys for the door, fortress, great goods, chamber, tomb, abandoned villages, rumours of war. We dig for pattern, breathe the room.
I think sometimes history as a subject can seem quite abstract, even esoteric. And what I love about archaeology is that it's a different way of looking at the past. It's all about the physical remains, it's tangible. And it can be such a great way of engaging young people with history, especially, as we see in our next story, when that history is actually so recent.
Our final dig takes place across the Irish Sea in Northern Ireland, near a village called Ballykelly in County Londonderry. In the grounds of a rectory, a team of forensic archaeologists and local students are searching for the location of a top-secret aircraft crash that's been a mystery for many decades. Immediately after the plane crashed in 1942, much of the debris was quickly cleared to prevent the highly classified equipment on board falling into enemy hands. Dig leader Johnny McNee has spent 18 months painstakingly searching for anything that remains.
What we're seeing at the minute coming out is just decomposed aluminium, and that's a good indication at this size that we're on the right spot, that this is aircraft related. So it's a promising first sign.
During World War II, aircraft flying from nearby RAF Ballykelly were helping to protect vulnerable convoys of ships, bringing desperately needed supplies from North America. At the height of the Battle of the Atlantic in 1942, so many ships, materials and men were being lost to the lethal German U-boats that the war itself was in the balance. Allied airmen were pushing themselves and their aircraft up to, and sometimes beyond, their limits.
Keep on going, Stephen, please.
The remaining debris that Johnny and his team are searching for is the result of one aircrew risking all on a secret mission.
Today we're looking for tangible traces of the aircraft that we can lift and retrieve and preserve and put on display, but also we're looking for evidence that will try to confirm to us that our scenario of how the aircraft crashed is actually here. So the primary one is to say this is the site of Beaufort AW271, this is where it crashed.
These Bristol Beauforts were torpedo bombers based at Ballykelly Airfield, testing cutting-edge radar technology, enabling them to detect and home in on surfaced submarines. But it wasn't just the radar that was experimental. Records show that this crew of Beaufort AW271 were also ordered to undertake a pioneering experiment to test if an injured airman could be safely parachuted from a plane by pushing a dummy with a chute out of a hatch. The exercise went catastrophically wrong.
The aircraft has come over the top of the rectory, with the parachute unfortunately deployed outside and wrapped around the tailplane. It's just come over the trees and has just belly flopped down onto the ground here and exploded, killing the 3 crew.
Flight Lieutenants Richard Holdsworth and Duncan Livingston, both aged 22, and 31-year-old Flight Sergeant Stanley Chadwick, all died.
It's been very emotional because we're having to deal with the tragic deaths of 2 dads and an uncle. So it's not like any other dig where we turn up and we know the airmen or the air crew have bailed out safely and all we're going to be finding is parts.
Johnny was asked to find the crash site by relatives of the crew. Thankfully, there have been no discoveries of human remains. But evidence of a shattered airframe is beginning to reveal itself.
I'm just wondering, could this be a propeller blade? But again, we'll need to clean, go back to our records, get an idea of what measurement. But there's a nice curved edge here. That's what this could be. As the engines were being revved up and slowed down to try to get the aircraft just to stay in the air to make a controlled landing, this thing has hit the ground with these spinning, and this is just sheared off. So there's a definite smooth edge and a thinner edge here. So we'll get that away out of the sunlight and get that bagged up and tagged.
It's now beyond doubt that this is the crash site that's lain forgotten for almost 80 years. Working with Johnny today is daughter Grace, who's joined by some of her fellow college students.
It's very eroded, but it seems cylindrical.
Yeah, it's a very, as you say, very...
You can see the metal coming through here as well.
Right. That's, a substantial bit. It could be part of engine or something like that, but well done, well spotted. Keep going.
The students are just a few years younger than the 2 flight lieutenants who died here.
That's what that is. But this stuff here that you've just found, this is really exciting. That's perspex from our Beaufort showing clear evidence of the fire that follows. So, no, great, is that? Well done. Get it into your bag and just write, with one of the Sharpies where you found it.
The young team were asked by the airmen's relatives to help reclaim any remaining wreckage.
Definitely our responsibility, because they're the ones trusting us to be looking through where their family actually passed away. I don't know, it feels like it's sort of an emotional responsibility more than anything.
So keep your eyes in for anything like this and we can get the dates. And also to see if you can find any of the tips, the little pointy ends that were the business end of the bullet. Keep a wee look. Yeah, that's you can see there, that's nice and clean.
We've been talking to Richard Holdsworth's daughter, and she's just been telling me that Richard wanted to learn how to fly since he was a young boy, and it's just so sad that what he loved so much was his downfall in the end.
There is one last heavyweight find for Johnny to remove.
It's concentric layers of lead on a central column. Probably something to do with keeping the weight in the tailplane down, but we'll go and check our schematic drawings and we'll check to see what it is, but nothing that's going to need us to check our insurance very quickly. So I'm just going to...
The site can be covered over once again as the team have found the last remnants of the plane and have hopefully brought some long-awaited closure for the families.
This has definitely been about the human story for the crew and their memory, for the relatives of the crew, but the most important thing, I think, for me and the level of trust that was put on the team today from the family members was Was there a thorough clean-up of the site in 1942? Were their loved ones' remains taken away? And we can say a most definite yes to that.
So thank you for the sacrifice of your forebears and my...
4 months later, Johnny's team returns to the crash site, joined by the crew's relatives and the RAF, to honour and commemorate the 3 brave young men's sacrifice. Ballykelly was an emotional, intriguing dig. Johnny and his daughter Grace joined me with those shattered remnants of Bristol Beaufort AW271 to see what else they can tell us about this crash.
This was a crash that you knew quite a lot about from the documentary evidence. You knew how it happened with the parachute wrapping around the tail. Did you find any evidence of that actual process of the crash itself?
We think we might have got one wee bit. The crew were asked to simulate pushing an injured airman out of this little window here. But as they pushed the dummy and the parachute, and we have an eyewitness account of this, they saw the parachute blossom and wrap itself around the tailplane. So 1 minute the aircraft is flying along, and the next minute this parachute has wrapped around the tail and just completely retards the speed. And poignantly, we found the piece of burnt parachute cord.
So that could have been the remaining piece of evidence of the actual cause of the crash, then?
Yes.
Yeah. Grace, you were there with your dad at the Ballykelly site doing this excavation. Have you done many excavations like this before?
I have been doing them since 2010, so lots of them, despite the early starts in the morning and the wet Northern Ireland weather, I have actually really enjoyed it.
So he's not dragging you along?
Not really.
No, you're going willingly. You're enjoying it?
Yes.
And some of your friends joined you as well?
Yes, there was 6 of us, like, originally, and then it moved up to 8.
And did you find any of these finds here?
Yes, so once the digger had taken back the first layer of soil, the students went in and did a grid search of the area, and we found bullets that have exploded.
These
like,
ones?
within the fire, yeah.
Yeah. So they haven't been shot, they've just exploded because of the heat?
Just exploded in the intense fire, yeah.
Yeah. And then what's that?
That's an instrument dial, and that's just the face. Again, it's been blackened by the heat and the fire, but it was just one of the only sort of small recognisable parts that we recovered.
And it really was very fragmentary evidence, wasn't it? Because, you know, this is a site which has been cleaned up.
Yes.
And this escapes recovery. This is part of the propeller, is it?
Yes.
What's it made of?
That's, you know, pure aluminium, and it just shows you the ravages of the fire.
Yeah.
This was found in one of the pits that was created by the aircraft as it fell to the ground.
And here we've got photographs of those 3 young men who died in this tragic accident. And actually, you're much closer in age to these young men than I am. How did it feel to be excavating at this site?
It really put into perspective, like, what they were put through at, like, such a young age as well, and helped, like, put in more emotion to the dig as well.
I mean, this is something that you would normally be reading about in history books at school. Does it feel more real to you, having done this?
It definitely means a lot more, like, being hands-on with the projects rather than just learning about it, because it, like, brings more of a fun aspect into it, being able to see it in real life.
Are you looking for new recruits, Johnny?
We are. We have about 15 or 16, I am told, that want to fill the shoes, and we're going to go out and look for another aircraft, and hopefully we'll offer them the opportunity.
I really did enjoy it.